we're here to announce a few measures that we think are incredibly important for New South Wales, a series of measures that in many cases we believe will make a major difference for this state. First of all, the government will introduce new laws banning hateful symbols and giving police greater powers to remove face coverings during public assemblies and demonstrations. The government will examine additional measures to further crack down on hateful slogans. Monday's legislation will make it a specific offence under New South Wales law to publicly display... I'll start that again. Monday's legislation will specifically outlaw terrorist symbols such as the ISIS flags and indeed all banned terrorist organisations in New South Wales for public display either in the streets, during a public demonstration or in houses, anywhere. The legislation will give police more powers to require someone suspected of committing an offence during a public assembly to remove face coverings. Currently, removal can only be required if they believe that the person's identity or the person is in the midst of committing an indictable offence. We'll change the law so it can be for any offence, which is particularly important in the context of clamping down on hate speech so that police can be in a position to identify who is responsible for offensive conduct, hateful slogans or racist behaviour. We'll also make it very clear that horrific recent events have shown that the chant "globalise the Intifada" is hate speech and it encourages violence in our community. The chant will be banned alongside other hateful comments and statements made in our community. Now, it's very important that we chart a legislative path that holds up as far as the Constitution is concerned. So the Attorney-General will ask the Legislative Assembly Committee on Law and Safety to conduct a quick investigation and report back to the Attorney-General about changes to the law and hate speech legislation that should specifically be included in the state's the hate speech bills that we passed last year. Now, this process is important because we need to make sure that if it's subject to a constitutional challenge in the High Court, it's very clear that we've followed a process by which a committee has investigated it, spoken to stakeholders and recommended changes to the New South Wales government. But I will insist that "globalise the Intifada" is included in that list. I will insist that "globalise the Intifada" is included in that list of hateful, violent rhetoric in New South Wales. I'm going to pass over to the Attorney-General now, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Premier. Governments have no more sacred a duty than to keep their citizens safe. People of New South Wales, every single one of them, regardless of where they live or what community they come from, have a right to be living in a peaceful society and not be interfered with, not have to be subject to racism and hatred and violence. That is our sacred mission. And we can't make people think what we want them to think. We can't force people to live together in harmony. We can ask them to do that. But for those very small few who decide that they won't do that, what is left at our disposal is strong legislation backed up by the best police force in the world. And that's what we have in New South Wales, and that's what this legislation is all about. So yesterday we moved to strengthen firearms laws and laws in relation to public assemblies, and as the Premier said today, there's further legislation to be taken to the Parliament on Monday. And as the Premier said yesterday, this is an iterative process. So for the hateful people in our society who intend to cause and sow division and hatred and break the law and want to look at these new laws and think that they can get creative and find ways around them, well, we'll be getting creative too. We will not stop. This process will never end. And if we have to keep amending laws, introducing new ones to give our police the best powers that they at their disposal, that's what we intend to do. One of the powerful things that we will do on Monday is introduce a bill to ban the display of terrorist organisations. We're going to link that to the Commonwealth Criminal Code. So I thought I'd just give you an example of some of the organisations, symbols and flags that will not be able to be displayed after this legislation comes into force. So of course we have organisations such as Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic State, and various geographical locations around the world, and on we go. The displaying of these symbols can only be done by someone who's either deranged or has an intention to insult and intimidate and scare, and that is not on in New South Wales. And as I said, we'll be looking for the goodwill of the Parliament when we return on Monday. I had an excellent briefing yesterday. The Minister for Police and I, with the opposition, took them through all of our intended laws about public assemblies, all of our intended laws in relation to firearms. So they're fully briefed, and we'll continue to brief them and the crossbench on this so that there'll be no complaints when we walk in Monday that no one was given any notice. They'll all get notice, but we need their help to get this legislation through. In fact, the people of New South Wales are demanding we all work together to do this.
Thanks, Attorney. We'll take questions.
Premier, the Daily Telegraph claims that actually Jewish leaders for a Royal Commission the only way will you support a Royal Commission?
I think we need a Royal Commission. Right now, we've got bits and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle here, but we don't have the full picture. And until we've got a full and accurate picture of exactly how this happened, with a plan to ensure that it doesn't happen again, then I don't have answers to the people of New South Wales about what happened on Sunday. Yes, it's clear that the criminal investigation has uncovered parts of what happened, but we need a comprehensive look at this horrible terrorism event. Look, we've got Royal Commissions, we've had them into all kinds of things over the years. This is the most serious event that's affected New South Wales for decades. If we're not going to have a Royal Commission into this, when would you use the powers of that extraordinary provision in our Act? So, look, I know that there are questions in relation to the ongoing criminal trial for one of the terrorists, and that's very important. But I'm confident that we can appoint a senior jurist, a former High Court judge, who's clever enough to navigate the trickiness of simultaneous inquiries. And the sooner we can get a comprehensive understanding, an independent investigation into what happened, then we can begin the process of bringing in change to ensure that we do everything possible so that it doesn't happen again.
Parliament resumes on Monday, and you obviously need bipartisan support. As Kelly Sloan, the opposition, and his crossbenchers giving you indication that they'll be backing everything that you're trying to do?
Look, I want to give credit to the Leader of the Opposition. Some of the initiatives that we're announcing today, we've taken from their suggestions in terms of a letter over the last week. And we want to build a bipartisan consensus here in relation to change. I'm not interested in political point scoring. I don't care about negative media releases or trying to get one up on the other team. Right now is a time for unity and action, and we will grab ideas that we believe will make a difference to keep the public safe.
President chant from the river to the sea amounts to hate speech. It is a chant that is frequently used at many of the protests that we intended to cover. Does that fall under the changes?
The committee will investigate what they regard as statements that inflame the community. So I'm not going to prejudge their investigation, but it's very clear, even in the last 24 hours, that London police have begun to charge people for that slogan, globalise the intifada. And they've done that on the basis of criminal actions that have taken place in Sydney. So if London police are taking action to arrest people for hateful rhetoric in the UK, then we need to be doing it here too. Now, I want to make this point. It'll be the subject of a committee investigation. They will report back to us and to Parliament next year. But anyone thinking that they can sneak in this phrase prior to legislative change should think again. We've got strong advice indicating that phrase, globalise the intifada, is already in breach of hate speech laws in New South Wales. This legislation will put it beyond a shadow of a doubt. So you're running a very risky racket if you're thinking of using that phrase before the bill goes through. You'll be subject to charging, you'll be subject to arrest and a full criminal weight. You can see police aren't mucking around now, nor should anyone be. This is a pivotal moment to send a clear message that we will not tolerate division in our community.
Just on that
Black Party, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, how are they not already illegal? Has there been a barrier by the government?
They're already covered by Commonwealth law, but we want to make sure that there's corresponding state legislation so that different agencies, different prosecuting authorities can commence criminal proceedings. This puts it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
And so why haven't you done that before?
Well, I mean,
a terrorist attack in Article 11?
I'll say a couple of things about that. Firstly, we were confident this was covered by Commonwealth law, so there wasn't a gap in the legislation. And secondly, things are going to change. I mean, we have to make this really clear. There's a difference between before Sunday and after Sunday. This is a threat to every citizen in New South Wales, all of us. Everything that was done previously with a hope of calming down tensions or potentially trying to ensure that we don't exacerbate divisions, we have to rethink all of it today. We can't be in a position where we see a repeat of Sunday. We need to do everything within our power to make that change.
How does the government plan to respond?
Sure.
That's our question. Our offence will be a much simpler offence than the Commonwealth provision. So all you will need to do, unlike the Commonwealth provision that has 4 or 5 elements that are sometimes difficult to prove, ours will be very simple. It'll be based on the display of Nazi symbols. All you have to do is knowingly display by a public act without excuse a prohibited terrorist symbol. That's it. 2 years in prison. No, you have to publicly display it. It's going to be on display for the world to see.
Should it not be illegal to have a flag of Al-Qaeda? Why are you not doing that? Like, surely that would contribute
Well,
to
it will
extreme-
be. It will be.
To possess one, but not to display
No,
it.
it's got to be. This is about. It's not about possession. It's about the display. It's about the effrontery that it causes to other citizens.
Are you looking at possession?
Not at the moment. Well, it's not like a firearm that needs to be licensed. We're dealing with the offences that cause division, that cause hatred, that cause effrontery, and that we know will not affront the Constitution. And we are copying the Nazi symbols.
Given it already falls under federal legislation, is that an assertion that the federal laws haven't
There's no assertions about any laws not working. We are making our own decisions based on the situations that confront us now in New South Wales.
And also, can I just say in relation to that question, we're not going to make any apologies for putting crimes that we believe have taken place in New South Wales beyond a shadow of a doubt. If we believe there's any ambiguity, even if it is duplicated law from the Commonwealth, we want to send a message from New South Wales that we won't tolerate it. Now, I understand there's legitimate questions around the public display as well as possession. We need to, like any piece of legislation, manage the constitutional risk associated with this legislation. That is a pressing challenge, and that's not a hypothetical challenge for the New South Wales government. You would remember bills and legislation that we have proposed to Parliament have been struck down by the High Court as recently as in the last 6 months, and I'm determined that that doesn't happen again, because I think that would be a big win in the circumstances. We move changes to the law to keep the public safe, and then it's struck down by the High Court. I don't want to send that message. I want to get it right in the first instance.
Just on that constitutional challenge, this formulating legislation, this process of legislation will this week, there will already be changes flagged for any parent constitutional challenge to that legislation.
Yeah, we're prepared. I mean, we've obviously got our bills in relation to those changes have been vetted by the Crown Solicitor. They've been worked up by the Cabinet Office. They've been approved by the Cabinet. We believe they're constitutionally valid. But not just that, we think it's hugely important to keep Sydney together. I mean, if there is tit for tat, I know there's apparently a protest taking place this weekend. We need to be in a position where we're keeping the public safe. And the second point I'd make about this is don't give in to hate. We're not going to solve this massive challenge for our community, our society, by descending into a cycle of hate. That would be terrible for New South Wales. It'd be terrible for Australia. But if we can have very clear, bright red lines about what's appropriate and what's not, what the rules are in our civilised society, I think that's the best way of keeping the community safe.
Yeah, okay, yesterday's police arrested, and then there was said in this agreement that they were on their way to the beach with this heightened tension at the moment. Do you think there's an instance of homophobic racial profiling or otherwise this homophobic behaviour by law enforcement seen similar to what we've seen in the aftermath of 9/11?
My strong view is that people shouldn't jump the gun here. I mean, we've been in a situation where we've been talking with all members of our community from different faiths and religions, and you've seen public demonstrations from the Muslim community and the Indian community and the Chinese community and the Catholics and the Anglicans in support of the Jewish community in this state. At the same time as this is gut-wrenching and terrible, there have been wonderful examples of the community coming together. So, this is a difficult time for the state, and I am concerned about racial disharmony, but that's one of the reasons why we've moved such comprehensive legislation. There'll be no tolerance for any kind of so-called vigilante attacks. There'll be no tolerance for violence in our community, and I just say we're not going to solve this massive challenge with more hate. It's only going to make it worse.
So do you think police jump
Sorry, I'll just keep going around.
What specifically is your government going to do to crack down on the promotion of hatred by extremist preachers in New South Wales, particularly those like Wissam Haddad, who has been linked to one of the guns?
Yeah, we're going to have more to say about that soon. I note the Commonwealth legislation, but as you can see, we are working through major changes in New South Wales and presenting them to the public in as short a order as we possibly can. We want to get legislation in before Christmas, but that's not going to be the end of the changes for New South Wales. It's too important. Right now, it is too important not to look at everything we possibly can to ensure that the public is safe. Before Parliament resumes early next year. Yeah, that's right.
How does the government plan to respond to Monday's planned protest against these laws? There's a pro-Palestine group organising protest on Monday.
Well, look, I mean, I think people should listen to police warnings here. There'll be no tolerance for breaches of the law. If there's an unauthorised protest and they attempt to go on the street, take over the streets, then they'll be met with the full force of the law. Police are giving fair warning to everybody. I understand that some people don't support our changes to the law. I genuinely do. Many people have reported back to me that they think it's a step too far. I don't think it is. I think it's absolutely crucial in ensuring that we keep our community safe in a very combustible, difficult situation. And I know it's been criticised, but I stand by it. Many of these protests have been unleashing forces that they can't contain, and those passions are being seen in our community, and we can't have it anymore. We can't have a situation where there's just a continuing ratcheting up of pressure and hateful rhetoric in our community, because we've seen what it does. Inevitably, it spills into violence.
You mentioned people pushing back.
And is there any risk that would violate the rights of women who wear religious face coverings, like Muslim women or like Hindu women?
No, I don't think there is. These legislative changes have been in place in Victoria. They've worked effectively. It's only if the police have a suspicion that someone's committing an offence, but the laws have already been in place for indictable offences, but if they believe that an offence is being committed. The second point here is, as distressing as it is for the Jewish community, I think it's worth reporting that in some cases you've got far-right extremist groups that use face coverings and then use hateful, violent, illegal speech. Police need to be in a position where if they suspect a crime is being committed, they can launch effective action. We've seen in the past that hateful, racist speech has been said in our community. The public expects action. It's a difficult job for the police, and we need to make sure they've got the tools to take that action.
You mentioned people saying that the reforms might have gone too far. Telling you that, has that included any members of your cabinet, some of whom marched over some of the bridge?
No, everybody in the cabinet accepts that this is absolutely essential for community harmony, and the circumstances have changed. Things have changed since Sunday. We don't live in that world anymore. This is the truth. Everything needs to be examined in order to keep our community together, to lower the temperature, to keep the public safe. The most important job of any government is to protect its citizens, and that means that you use every tool in the arsenal to do that.
Regarding the men who were arrested and have now been released without charge, you talk there about lowering the temperature. Was there any attempt to just stop these men in a normal traffic stop? Why was it necessary to ram their car?
I'm not going to comment about operational policing activity. I'm not going to do it. Police have their reasons to keep the public safe. And if we start getting to a point where we start second-guessing operational decisions, I don't know where that leaves us, but I'm going to let the police do their job. Obviously, they need to take decisive action in real time when they receive it. And I'm not going to finish my answer. I'm not running away from questions, but I'm allowed to finish my answer. So the truth of the matter is we need to allow police to do their job, to keep us safe. There's no second guessing in the circumstances where information needs to be acted on immediately, and I expect them to do that job. So I back the police. It's too important right now to ensure that the public is safe.
But now they're open to being sued for unlawful detention, excessive use.
Yeah, but I'm not going to speculate on that. I mean,
Well,
that
lawyers saying they're going to sue them for that.
their lawyers say that.
Yeah.
I'm not in a position, nor will I speculate about a private citizen's lawyer launching an action against the New South Wales government. It's up to them.
Moving from police operations to police communications, the Commissioner had no hesitation mentioning that there were Islamic ties, supposedly, between these 7 men that were arrested. And it's also been reported this morning that police have, rather than consulting with senior Muslim figures, told them that they're planning counter-terrorism raids, not in a consultative fashion, but just instructing.
Well, look,
Are you worried
I
that
wasn't
you're
at that
responsible for
meeting.
isolating Muslim communities?
Look, it's a long question. I just say I wasn't at that meeting, and I presume you weren't either. I mean, it's a one-sided rendering of that conversation. I haven't had it confirmed. Don't know what the circumstances were. I am aware of hundreds of meetings between police liaison officers, senior terrorism command, local area commanders with Muslim leaders going back decades, including very recently. So, I think it would be wrong to characterise a meeting that none of us were at as indicative of the relationship between that community and New South Wales Police, because you'd be willfully forgetting the thousands of other meetings that have taken place over decades and the relationships that have been built up. What I will say, and I think this is important to be called out, it was a powerful condemnation from a top imam, Sheikh Araf Shakar, in relation to the Bondi terror attack. And I'm going to read his condemnation from Friday's prayers. This week, the ghost of tyranny and terror has come to us in Australia, the Sheikh said. What happened in Bondi, my brothers and sisters, was a heinous crime by all standards, by any measure, religious, political or racial. And there is no justification for it, and we will accept none. Now that is a clear denunciation of this horrifying crime from a senior cleric in our Muslim community in Western Sydney. I don't point it out because it's unusual. I would have expected that. I knew that they would be saying that at the first available opportunities at Friday's prayers. I bring it up today because I want it recognised that we are relying on and working very closely with senior Muslim leaders in Western Sydney and across New South Wales to keep the community safe, and we appreciate that cooperation. We genuinely do.
If there was enough information for the police to intercept these men so urgently and forcefully, but not enough to actually arrest them and continue with any kind of charges, do the police need more powers for situations like this, and are any of these laws that we're looking at on Monday going to address that?
Look, it's a hypothetical question, but obviously there are circumstances where people are arrested and then charges don't result. It would happen every single day right across the state. The people of New South Wales do expect police to act on information and intelligence when it comes to them, and I want them to be in a position to do just that. There's no second guessing after information has been received and something terrible happens. Now, they're going to act proportionally. They're highly trained, they're highly skilled, they know what they're doing, but they're not mucking around at the moment. And as it stands in Sydney, that's very important. I don't want them mucking around.
You have shown more empathy, says, and understanding of the rising hate. On your watch, we've seen 3 of our nation's icons desecrated: the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, and now Bondi Beach. How does it feel to have been in charge when we've seen those 3 sites?
Yeah, look, I think you were around during that period. I opposed the Harbour Bridge protests. The reason there was a horrible racist incursion on the Opera House is because I made the decision to light it up with the colours of the flag of Israel. So there's circumstances there. What I would say is, of course we want to change. We've made a decision to act in a decisive way in a range of ways to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And what I'd say specifically in relation to those comments or other comments is, right now I need help. I need help getting this legislation through. I need help getting these reforms through. This is all of the initiatives that we've proposed in the parliament are being opposed by political parties and different political groups. And in order to make significant change to keep the public safe, we can't do it by ourselves. We've had good bipartisan support from different political parties, but now the rubber hits the road and the job's not done. This will go on for a long time. These suites of reforms will not stop with Parliament rising on Tuesday. They'll continue into the new year until we've done everything we possibly can to keep the community of New South Wales safe. Okay, thanks everybody.